Boker Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to the Light to the Nations channel. In the video today, we will continue with the study of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach. I know that most of you have been waiting for this continuation with this part. I apologize for the time. It was a little bit time-consuming to prepare the material, but finally we are here. We will continue with the study. It's quite important that you remember everything that we were covering in the previous part, from part 1 to part 4, because we were going step by step, with baby step basically, to build and lay all the foundations that it was necessary in order to get to this moment. Because in this part number 5, we will use all of that foundation in order to understand the chronology of events on the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua. So, as I have been saying in the previous videos, if you have not watched yet the part 1 to part 4, I strongly recommend you to go and watch them first before watch this part 5. You can come back later to the part number 5, but watch those parts first, because believe me, if you don't see and you don't have that foundation, it's going to be very difficult for you to follow this part of the study, and somehow it's going to be very difficult to understand what we're going to see and what we're going to discuss today. So again, it's important that you remember what we saw in the previous videos. Anyways, I included a summary of what we saw, so it's going to be easy to refresh somehow the main topics we already review. Since we will check the different accounts in the Brit Hadashah, in the book of Matthew, Marcos, Lucas, and Yahuhanan. Those are the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I didn't include all the text, because if I'm including, it's going to take a lot of time and also too many slides. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to read directly from the scriptures for you. That's why I also recommend you to take your scriptures and read along with me, because I want you to study together with me in this part. And no matter that maybe you have a different version, as I told you, I'm using the scriptures from the Institute of Scripture Research. You can use the King James or another version. You know, the most important thing is the core message, no matter that maybe the translation change a little bit between them. So take the scriptures, read along with me. And again, if at the end of the study you have any question, you can always send me the email to the light2everynation@gmail.com. Sometimes it takes more time to me to answer, but I'm answering all the emails. So if you have any comment or any question, you're always welcome to send me your question, and we can have a dialogue in order to understand all the comments and any doubt that you can have. So no more preamble. Let's go directly to the presentation. So basically, let me share the screen with you. Here we are. So basically, in this part number 5, we will check the chronology of events of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach. You will see in the next slides, when we are going directly to the point, we will cover each one of the events from the day 14, the day of the Pesach according to Yahuwah's calendar, until the day of the resurrection of Yahushua. For sure, there are some tiny details that I'm not including because of a space limitation on the presentation, but we are considering the most important events on the chronology between the day 14 and the day of the resurrection of Yahushua. Okay, so basically, if we move on, what we will discover today is the timeline with the events of Yahushua's death, burial, and resurrection. So we will build a timeline of all the events, starting, as I said, in the day 14 until the day of the resurrection of Yahushua. So we will see the main important events on the death, burial, and resurrection. And what's the idea is to put the sequence of the events, just to understand when those happen, and why and how this happened. Okay. Second of all, the second point is that we will check and we will discover and we will study directly from the scriptures when Yahushua really entered the tomb. We talked about this in the previous video regarding the sign of Jonah, the prophet, the Nabi, and we discovered that the counting of this sign based on what Yahushua said and based on the prophecy of Jonah needed to start on the day, not in the night. So it's basically, in order to fulfill the prophecies, it has to be 3 days and 3 nights, not 3 nights and 3 days. So we will discover directly from the accounts on the Brit Hadashah, on the chronology of events, when Yahushua really entered the tomb. Also, and this is quite connected to the previous point, is that we will see on the timeline when Yahushua really resurrected. This is one of the important debatable points that some people said that it was resurrected in the Shabbat, and others said that it was resurrected in the first day of the week. And there's a lot of debates and confusion about that. We will try to clarify this, checking and reading directly the Pesa of Yahuwah. And as I have been telling you, and let me share my camera with you as well, so it's much easier. I have been telling you we cannot rely on men, and that's include me. We need to rely in the Pesa of Yahuwah because this is the truth, and the most important thing, we need to put our trust in Yahuwah and Yahuwah alone, nobody else. As I have been telling as well, the important is not the messenger. It's not me, it's nobody else. What is important is the message, is the owner of the message, that's Yahuwah. Okay? So we need to put our trust in him and in his truth, that is the Devar, in order to understand and unlock all of these items. In addition to that, we will talk as well and understand directly from the Devar of Yahuwah, the word of Yahuwah, the Greek expression miaton sabaton. If this is the first time that you are hearing this expression, don't worry, we will review it. We will see how understanding this expression is so important, because this is one of the debated points as well, related to when Yahushua really resurrected. So we will talk about this. We will understand this expression directly from the Devar of Yahuwah, directly from his truth. Also, and this is going to be quite important at the end of this video, is that we will compare the end with the beginning. We talked about this in the previous scriptures, in this previous video, that Yahuwah is revealing us the end from the events of old. This is an important principle, and we will also use it in this video just to compare the former events with the events of Yahushua. Okay, so let's continue. In the video number 1, I was presenting you that based on my journey, I learned few keys that are quite important in order to open our understanding of the chronology of events of Yahushua, about the calendars, and about many other things that are helping us to unlock and understand prophecies on the scriptures. So we're gonna review it quite fast now. What are the keys? Because some of them we already covered, most of them actually we already covered in the previous videos, and I want you to keep those keys on your mind, because those are gonna be quite important, because we're gonna use it. We're gonna use them during this video. Okay. That's why, again, what I said at the beginning, it's important that you remember and all what we saw in the previous videos. And if you have not watched those videos, go and watch them, because I'm not going to explain again this video because of time limitation. That's why we need to understand what are those keys, what are that foundation we already built, because we're going to use it, we're going to put in practice. So let's review what are the keys. So the first one that I was telling you is what is a day. We review this, we talk about this, and we confirm directly from the scriptures. I also have a specific video about this, what is a day study, part 1, part 2, and part 3, that according to the Pesa of Yahuwah, the day is starting in the morning and is ending on the evening. So it's basically the portion of light. Okay, let me move the camera a little bit. Okay, good. So this is an important key. The second one is that the first Pesach, okay, the first Pesach ever, is that it's quite important to understand the different events that happened in that first Pesach of Israel when they were coming out of Mizraim, Egypt, because the sequence of events on when each one of the events happened and in the with the frequency or the speed that every of the events happen is going to help us to understand what happened during Yahushua's time, Yahushua's death, burial, and resurrection. So we already covered some of them in the previous videos. So it's important that we already confirm directly from the scriptures that this is also a key to open the understanding. The third point is that we also discover directly from the Devar of Yahuwah is that the first day, the first Yom of the Shavua is always, let me put the camera here, is always on the fourth day of the week. And why that this point was so important, that knowing this, we can unlock and understand when is the day of the Pesach according to the calendar of Yahuwah. Okay, this was one of the keys as well, and we will review it in the next slide with a summary of all the foundation we already laid. The next key is that Mashiach ate Pesach in his Last Supper. Also, we were able to confirm that from the scriptures. It's also a key that we need to keep in mind. The next one, and we have not been confirming in 100% yet on from the scriptures. We have been checking this somehow in the different studies that I have been sharing with you so far about this renewed understanding, and I talk about this in a specific video as well, that Yahushua is not the one fulfilling the Moedims, as we always receive as that understanding. Yahushua is not the one fulfilling the Moedim. We, Israel, are the ones fulfilling the Moedim, for sure through Yahushua, because through Yahushua we have access to the Father. Through Yahushua we become people, the Yahuwah's people. Through Yahushua we are part of the olive tree. Okay? So, but it's important to understand the difference. Yahushua is not going to fulfill the Moedim. We are going to fulfill the Moedim through Yahushua. Important thing to keep in mind, because it's a key in order to understand even what we are going to review today. In addition to that, we also talk about the calendar. Okay, we also talk about the calendar and the different issues there was with the calendar during the life of Yahushua in his first coming. We were able to understand this on the part 2 of the video, and we discovered directly from the scriptures and its historical information that there were 2 different calendars during the time of Yahushua. Okay, so those were the keys that we were reviewing in the previous studies. So let's do a quick summary of what we saw from part 1 to part 4. So the first one is that we discovered that Yahuwah is declaring the end using the events of all. We saw the scripture, this is in Yeshayahu, Isaiah, that Yahuwah is always going to tell us what's going to happen at the end from the events of all. So it's basically, as Shlomo said, there's nothing new under the sun. What already happened is going to happen again. So this is basically a cycle. We are repeating the same history. The same thing that happened to Israel in the past is the same thing that happened during Yahushua's time. It's the same thing that is happening today to us. It's the same thing that's going to happen to us very soon, when all prophecies from the scriptures, all the prophecies of the last days are going to start fulfilling, and they are being fulfilled so far. So it's important to understand, if we want to, even for the prophetic calendar and the prophecies of the last day, if we want to understand them, we need to understand them from the light of the former events, as Yahuwah is teaching us and telling us on his word, his Devar. Also, we saw that the laws of the luminaries have not changed. And this is an important revelation, an important thing that we discovered in the previous studies, is that the laws that Yahuwah appointed to the luminaries at the beginning of the creation are the same laws that are being has been working today, and are exactly the same laws that are gonna keep working until the new creation of the new earth and the new Shemayim. Not change at all, and we saw this directly how Yahuwah was comparing changing the laws to forgetting the covenant with Israel or David. So we know that he is not forgetting, he's keeping the covenant with David, with Abraham, with Israel. So in the same way that he's keeping that covenant, he's keeping the same laws for the luminaries. So if you don't remember the details of this, go to a study on the part number 2. I think this in this part we cover this point. Is critical and it's very important, because this is one of the foundations just to understand the existence of the two calendars during this period, and also to understand how Yahuwah's calendar worked in order to understand the different events of Yahushua during this period of time. Also, and this is also related to the previous point, understanding this, that the laws of the luminaries are not changing and has not changed, we discovered that according to Yahuwah's calendar, the year is always starting on the 4th day of the Shavuot, because during the creation of the luminaries, that happened on the 4th day of the Shavuot, the 4th day of the week. So in that day is when the revolution of all the luminaries started. Okay? So the revolution is gonna started on the 4th day, it's gonna be completed on the 3rd day, and again after 1 year it's gonna start again in the 4th day of the Shavuot, and it's gonna end in the 3rd day, and that until eternity, until the new creation, based on the laws of the luminaries. And why important? Because understanding that, we discovered that Pesach will always be on the 3rd day of the Shavuot, because if the laws of the luminaries are not changing, it means that the appointed times of Yahuwah are fixed dates. They're not going to change. It's going to be exactly in the same moment, in the same position of the sun, in the same position of the stars. It's not the same position of the moon, because the moon has a different revolution, and I already preparing the following part of the calendar study to talk about the revolution of the moon. But the position of the sun and the position of the stars are exactly the same year by year in the appointed times of Yahuwah. This is quite amazing, because that's the way he works. He doesn't change. We change our mind. He's not changing his mind. So what he declared from the beginning is the same thing that is happening today, because he's keeping his word. So Pesach always going to happen in the 3rd day of the Shavuot, the 3rd day of the week. Also, we saw that Antiochus Epiphanes, this was the Seleucid king, was the you remember when Alexander the Great died, his kingdom was divided in 4 empires. One of them was the Seleucid, and from that empire a new king came rise, that was Antiochus Epiphanes, and this one was the one setting up the first fulfillment of the Daniel prophecies with the abomination of desolation. We saw this in the part number 3 of the video on the study, and we also saw how he was pushing the Yahudim to forget the Torah, to forget the ancient feast days, the ancient Moedim, how he was pushing them to follow the manners and the customs of the Gentiles, imposing lunar calendar, imposing their laws. And we saw how the Yahudim, based on the testimony of the book of Maccabees, they follow the manners of the Gentiles. And the most important thing is that Antiochus Epiphanes imposed the lunar calendar, so the Yahudim started to follow the lunar calendar at that moment. And it's exactly the same lunar calendar they're following today, and it's exactly the same calendar that I was following until September last year, and it's the calendar I put aside and started to follow the real calendar for Yahuwah, the one that I have been sharing with you, that is based on the movement of the 3 luminaries in the Shemayim, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Okay? So very important information, and we talked in great details about this in the previous part of this study. Also, based on that, we as well discovered that Yahushua kept a totally different calendar than the Yahudim. And if you remember, one of the most important aspects we discovered in the part number 2 is regarding Sukkot and how Yahushua was saying to his brothers on the flesh. He was saying, "It's not my time. Your time is always ready. I'm not going with you to the feast." And they were talking about Sukkot. And Sukkot, we are commanded by the Torah that we need to go to Jerusalem. So by Yahushua saying, "I'm not going with you because it's not my time," and then just showing up at the middle of the feast, he was giving us an example, that he was giving us an evidence that he was following a totally different calendar, because we are commanded to be in Jerusalem for Sukkot, and Sukkot is starting in the first day, in the 15th day of the 7th month. It's starting the first day of the feast, is a Shabbat, and we are commanded by Yahuwah in the Torah that we need to be there. So Yahushua just show up on the middle of the week, not in the first day of the feast. Important revelation that we already saw, and it was one of the way we saw to discover that he was keeping a different calendar. Also, when we were talking about in the part number 3 about the Yahushua eating Pesach, we discovered that synchronizing the 4 accounts in the Brit Hadashah, that Yahushua really ate Pesach, and he ate Pesach in the previous day from the Yahudim. And why was that? Because he was eating Pesach in the 3rd day of the week, based on what we discovered on Yahuwah's calendar, that Pesach is always in the 3rd day of the week. That was the second witness to confirm that Yahushua was following a different calendar than the lunar calendar of the Yahudim. So keep that in mind, because it's important. We will review it again today. Also, as I said recently, Yahushua ate Pesach in his Last Supper. We discovered this in the part number 3 of the study, and this is also very important to understand the difference about the calendar kept by the Yahudim and the calendar kept by Yahushua. In the part number 4, we discovered about the sign, the only sign that Yahushua gave about him, and it's the sign of Jonah, that he, in the same way that Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, he was to be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights as well. It was very important discovery, because we saw how the sequence of events in Jonah story, it has a perfect match, a perfect revelation of what happened with Yahushua, with the one man dying to save the others, how he was thrown away on the sea, and the sea was representing his death, and then how he was getting closer to Sheol, the belly of the fish, and when he was inside the belly of the fish, it was when he was on Sheol, meaning when Yahushua was on the tomb. And then we saw how Jonah came back to life in the same way, representing the resurrection of Yahushua coming back to life again, and through him, through Jonah, an entire city got saved, in the same way that after Yahushua's resurrection, the entire world had the possibility to get saved. Very important information. If you want to review it, go review it again, because it's quite important. Actually, during that video, if you remember, we also saw in the prayer of Jonah, when he was in the belly of the fish, different aspects that are related to Yahushua himself. Even we were able to see during the video something that I wasn't able to see before, that in the prayer of Jonah, he's talking about the crown of thorns in the head of Yahushua. It's quite amazing to see this kind of details directly from the word of Yahuwah. It's not something that we are inventing, or it's not a thought, it's not an interpretation from our side. It's just reading the word of Yahuwah and just letting the Ruach HaKodesh lead us in the truth. Okay? So, and also as part of that, and I already mentioned this, we discovered that 3 days and 3 nights are not equal to 3 nights and 3 days. And Yahushua said, in the same way that Jonah was in the belly of the fish, that was his sign, he said, I'm going to be 3 days and 3 nights. And 3 nights and 3 days are totally different things. So the only way that Yahushua fulfilled the prophecy is that the counting of him being on the tomb has to start on the day and not on the night. We will review it again today based on the different chronologies of events. Okay, so let me remove my camera, and we will start, as I said, with the chronology of events on the day 14, all related to Yahuwah's calendar. Okay, so the day 14, we know this is Pesach, and we will review all the details. So basically what we will see and what we will do is that we will use all the foundation that we already saw in the different videos before, the summary that we already reviewed. We are going to use all that foundation in order to sync up the events on the 4 accounts on the Brit Hasha, from Matthew, Matityahu to Yahuhanan, Yon. So basically, we will see the different events starting only on the day 14 in this slide. And again, as I said, we need to use the foundation that we already know, that the day is starting on Boker, in morning, and is ending on Erev, evening. After that, we have the night, and a new day is starting. Okay? So we know that the day 14 is the Pesa of Yahuwah. Okay? This is written in the Torah, that the day 14 is the moment that we need to sacrifice the Pesach, and we need to eat it during the night. We saw this in great details in the previous videos. So based on the calendar of Yahuwah and the foundation we already have, that this is going to happen always on the 3rd day of the week. So day 14 on Yahuwah's calendar is always going to happen on the 3rd day of the week, meaning that in the next morning, the 4th day of the week is starting. Okay, in Yahuwah's calendar, as I said, this means it's the day 14, and in day 4 should be it is the day 15. And we also know that during that period, and actually even now, we have 2 different calendars. The Yahudim were following a lunar calendar, and for them, this day 14 on Yahuwah's calendar was the day 13. And in this evening for them was starting the day 14 until the next evening in the 4th day of the week. Important information, keep that in mind. We already saw this in the previous videos. If you don't remember, stop the video, the study here, go review the information first and come back, because it's important that you're following me, because I'm not repeating all the study again. It's something that we already reviewed in the previous videos. So we're going to start reviewing the account on Matityahu. We are going to use as a baseline the Matityahu account, and then we will review the specific difference that we see, or additional information we see in the other accounts. And as I said, please take your scriptures, read along with me, and actually I'm going to put the video again so you can see me. Matityahu, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 17 to chapter 27, verse 2. Matityahu, Matthew 26, verse 17 to chapter 27, verse 2. Okay, so it reads the following. And on the first day of unleavened bread, the taught ones came to Yahushua, saying to him, Where do you wish us to prepare for you to eat the Pesach? And he said, Go into the city to a certain man, and said to him, The teacher says, My time is near. I am to perform the Pesach at your house with my taught ones. And the taught ones did as Yahushua had ordered them and prepared the Pesach. And when evening came, he sat down with the 12. So basically, since starting on verse 17 to verse 20, we see, and we talk about this in great details in the video part number 3, how Yahushua sent 2 Talmidim to prepare Pesach for him, because that was the Pesach that he was eating with the Talmidim during that night. So we confirm this, that Yahushua ate Pesach. This is one of the key in order to understand everything. And basically, we saw that he was fulfilling Pesach and sending the Talmidim to prepare Pesach during that period of time. We know that, and I talk about this when the Pesach lamb was sacrificed on a video called A Word About the Second Pesach. I show you some evidence directly from the scriptures how to understand when they were sacrificing the Pesach in the 9th hour. So if you have not watched that video, please go there. You will understand why it was at the 9th hour. So the most important thing is, because understanding this, we can understand when is the between the evenings, because the commandment about the Pesach is that we need to sacrifice the lamb between the evenings. Okay, so by Yahushua sending his disciples, his Talmidim, to prepare Pesach, they were doing all of this, sacrificing the Pesach, preparing the lamb during this period of time, because when evening came, as we just read, Yahushua sits down with the 12 to eat the Pesach. This is what is written over here until the verse 20. So let's continue in the verse 21. And it says, "And while they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you, one of you shall deliver me up.' And they were deeply grieved, and began to say to him, each of them, 'Master, is it I?' And he answering said, 'He who has dipped his hand with me in the dish, he shall deliver me up. Indeed, the Son of Adam goes as it is being written concerning him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Adam is delivered up. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born.' Wow. And Yahuwah, he who delivered him up, answering said, 'Rabbi, is it I?' He said to him, 'You have said it.' And as they were eating, Yahushua took bread, and having blessed, broke and gave it to the 12 ones, and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.'" So we just read that somehow the entire dialogue is that Yahushua was telling the disciples that somebody of the group, from the group of his disciple, is going to betray him. It's going to deliver him up to the elders, to the chief priests, to the nations. So this was the first big event that we see when they were eating the Pesach. Okay, and we see in the verse, starting on the verse 26, that is the symbols that the Yahushua is taking as part of the Pesach meal to let the disciples know the sacrifice that he was almost ready to fulfill. And we read again in the verse 26, "And as they were eating," so they were eating the Pesach, "Yahushua took bread, and having blessed, broke and gave it to the 12 ones, and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.'" This is quite important before following. Yahushua didn't take the lamb to proclaim himself to be the lamb of Pesach, to proclaim himself that the lamb was the most important symbol of the sacrifice that he was doing. So there's some people that they are taking this just to say, no, because they were not eating Pesach, they were not eating lamb, that's why this wasn't a Pesach, and that's why he was not proclaiming this. But thinking on that, and just forgetting all the other texts that we already reviewed on the previous videos, is just to, I don't know, it's not seeing the entire picture and not seeing the entire reality of what the scripture is telling us. So we know for certain, and we discovered this, that he really ate Pesach. So why he didn't proclaim to the disciples that he was the lamb, and the lamb was representing his sacrifice? This is quite important. Remember, I'm not going to go in details now because we will cover it in the next video. But it's important to see this important point, why Yahushua didn't say anything about the lamb during the Pesach meal. So let's continue in the verse 27. "And taking the cup and giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I said to you, I shall certainly not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on, till that day when I drink it anew with you in the reign of my Father. I long for that moment, and I quite sure that you feel exactly the same than me. To be present on that moment when we are going to be able to eat Pesach directly with Yahushua in Jerusalem. It's going to be so wonderful that I long for that moment, and I hope it's going to happen very soon. So, it's going to be in that moment that we will confirm as well, and he will tell us, he will teach us everything. So we see at the moment that there are many things that were happening at the time that they were eating Pesach. So if we continue here in the chronology of events in the timeline, we see that when Yahushua sat down in order to eat Pesach, they were eating Pesach during the night, because we know that Pesach needs to be ate during the night. So Yahushua, during that period of time, he ate the Pesach with the disciples. He also announced, as we already said, saw his betrayer, Yehuda. And also, he took the bread and the wine as the symbols of his sacrifice for the forgiveness of our sins. Okay? So, let's continue in the verse 30, and it says, "And having sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Yahushua said to them, All of you shall stumble in me this night, for it has been written, I shall strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. But after I have been raised, I shall go before you into Galilee. And Kepha answering said to him, Even if I stumble in you, I shall never stumble. Yahushua said to him, Truly I say to you that this night before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. This is very important, because we see all the events that we are occurring during this period of time. So before moving on, so we see that after they were eating Pesach, they sung a song and they went to the Mount of Olives. So when they complete eating Pesach, Yahushua goes to the Garden of Gethsemane and pray. So they were to the Mount of Olives. And actually, if we continue in the verse 35, and it says, Kepha said to him, Even if I have to die with you, I shall not deny you. All the 12 ones said the same too. Then Yahushua came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and said to the 12 ones, Sit here while I go over there and pray. So we see that they went to the Mount of Olives, to the Garden of Gethsemane, and Yahushua was praying. Let's continue, verse 37. And he took with him Kepha and the 2 sons of Zabdi, and he began to be grieved and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, My being is exceedingly grieved, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. Yahushua knew what was going on, and was almost happening in the next hour. So he know that he need to lay his life in order to die for us. Can you imagine the stress of thinking on that, knowing what's going to happen? I could be even scared than him, most probably, about knowing what's going to happen. So he was praying to Yahuwah in order to have the strength. It's the same thing we need to do when we are in troubles and we are in stress and distress. We need to pray to Yahuwah when we are having different situations around us. We need to follow the examples and the step of Yahushua. We need to ask Yahuwah to give us the strength. That's the way we put the trust in Yahuwah, and not trusting in our own strength, not trusting in anybody else, just trusting in Him the same way that Yahushua did it. He is our example. Let's continue in the verse 39. And going forward a little, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I desire, but as you desire. It's exactly the same thing we need to do. I know this is off topic, but it's important to keep it in mind. No matter our emotions, no matter our thoughts, no matter our feelings, we need to always look to feel or fulfill the desire and the will of Yahuwah the Father. If our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings are pushing us to a different direction, we need to listen to the words of Yahushua. We need to deny ourselves. Because every time that we follow our thoughts, every time that we're following our desires, our feelings, our emotions, we mistake. Because our thoughts are not their thoughts, his thoughts. Our ways are not his ways. So that's why we need to deny ourselves and ask the Father, please, Father, in the same way that Yahushua did, if it's your desire, please do it for me. But not my desire, yours. Let's continue in the verse 40. And he came to the 12 ones and found them asleep and said to Kepha, so were you not able to watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into trial. The spirit indeed is eager, but the flesh is weak. The importance of praying, especially in the days that we are living today. We need to pray to Yahuwah. 42. Again he went away a second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is impossible for this to pass unless I drink it, let your desire be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them, went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. So we see that this was happening during the night of watches. It's the same thing that was happening in the first Pesach ever, when they were eating and waiting for the morning. In this time, Yahushua was praying to Yahuwah. Their disciples were getting sleep. 45 says, Then he came to his 12 ones and said to them, still sleeping and taking rest? See, the hour has come near, and the Son of Adam is delivered up into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. See, he who delivered me up has come near. And while he was still speaking, see, Yehuda, one of the 12, with a large crowd with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. And he who was delivering him up gave them a sign, saying, Whomever I kiss, it is he. Seize him. And going straight up to Yahushua, he said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. So basically, we see that there are a lot of things happening during that night, the night of watches. So when Yahushua went to the Garden of Gethsemane and prayed, basically we see here that Yahushua is betrayed and is arrested. So basically we see how Yahuda, the betrayer, came with different people, with a lot of people, with a crowd of people, with swords and clubs in order to arrest Yahushua. We continue in the verse 50. It says, And Yahushua said to him, Friend, why have you come? Then they came and laid hands on Yahushua and seized him. And look, one of those with Yahushua put out his hand and drew his sword, and striking the servant of the high priest, he cut off his ear. Then Yahushua said to him, Return your sword to its place, for all who take the sword shall die by the sword. Or do you think that I am not able to pray to my Father now, and he shall provide me with more than 12 legions of messengers? Why amazing, This is emunah, this is faith. It's the same thing that we need to follow. Yahushua had this certainty that if he was praying to Yahuwah will send messengers to help him. It's the same thing we need to do always. If we are in troubles, we need to pray to Yahuwah to help us. But with that same emunah, the faith of Yahushua in our heart, that what we are asking to the Father, we are asking him without any doubt in our minds, in our heart. So let's continue in the verse 54. How then would the scriptures be filled that it has to be this way? In that hour Yahushua said to the crowds, Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to arrest me? Daily I sat with you teaching in the set-apart place, and you did not seize me. But all this came to be so that the scriptures of the prophets might be filled. Then all the 12 ones left him and fled, so Yahushua was alone. And those who had seized Yahushua led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, the Kohen Hagadol, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. So basically we see that this happened during the night. when after they went to Gethsemane, we know that this eating the Pesach it took some time because a lot of things happened during here. We will review it in the other accounts as well. And they went in one moment on the night to the Garden of Gethsemane, and during the night as well, Yahushua was arrested, betrayed and arrested. He entered into bondage. He wasn't a free man anymore. He was enslaved, and this is quite important because we see it at the end of the slide. So they took Yahushua and they led to Yahushua to Caiaphas, the Kohen Hagadol. So let's continue. The verse 58. But Kepha followed him at a distance to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. And the chief priest and the elder and all the council were seeking false witness against Yahushua to put him to death, but found none. Although many false witnesses came forward, they found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward and said, This one said, I am able to destroy the dwelling place of Elohim and to build it in 3 days. And the high priest stood up and said to him, Have you no answer to make? What do these witness against you? But Yahushua remained silent. So the high priest said to him, I put you to oath by the living Elohim that you say to us if you are the Mashiach, the Ben Elohim, the son of Elohim. Yahushua said to him, You have said it. Besides, I say to you, from now you shall see the Ben Adam, the son of Adam, sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of the Shamayim. Then the high priest tore his garments, saying, He has blasphemed. Why do we need any more witnesses? See, now you have heard his blasphemy. What do you think? And they answering said, He is liable to death. Then they spat in his face and beat him, and others slapped him, saying, Prophesy to us, Mashiach. Who is the one who struck you? We see how the council of the Yahudims accused Yahushua of blasphemy. And it's it's impossible not to feel sad to everything that Yahushua has to go through, how they treat him, and think that he did it for us, to set us free. And that's the love of Yahuwah for us. So basically, we see in the timeline of events that when Yahushua was led to Caiaphas, the Kohen Hagadol, everything that we just read happened. So all of them were bringing false witnesses, and they were accusing Mashiach, Yahushua. And finally, they decided to accuse him and to put him to death. Okay, let's continue in the verse 69. And Kepha sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, And you were with Yahushua of Galilee. But he denied before them all, saying, I do not know what you say. And as he was going out into the porch, another girl saw him and said to those there, And this one was with Yahushua of Nazareth. But again he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a while those who stood by came to him and said to Kepha, Truly you are one of them too, for even your speech gives you away. Then he began to curse and to swear, saying, I do not know the man. And immediately a cock crowed. And Kepha remembered the word of Yahushua, who had said to him, Before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. And going out, he wept bitterly. I don't want me to happen the same. I don't want to deny Yahushua. And I know that you don't want to deny him either. So, keep that in mind in our heart, because it's also for our example that we need to trust in Yahushua, and we need to love what he did for us, and we need to proclaim his name, not to deny it. So let's continue in the chapter 27, verse 1 and 2. And it says, "A morning having come, all the chief priests and elder of the people took counsel against Yahushua, so as to put him to death. And having bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor." So we see that this happened when morning came. So we see that before they accused Yahushua, Kepha denies Yahushua here. And when morning came, and we know that morning is starting the following day, the council of the elders and chief priests decided to put Yahushua to death, and they bound it and they led him to Pontius Pilate, the governor, the Roman governor. So basically, those are the main events that happened during that moment. We see all the main events that happened starting on the day 14 and during the night before the day 15. So if we go to Marcos, I'm not going to read the entire account of Marcos, but I want to because you can read by yourself and you will find that exactly the same chronology of events happen. There are not that much difference. So you can read it. It's in Mark chapter 14 verse 12 to chapter 15 verse 1. But since I'm not going to read it completely, I want to highlight a specific thing that we also saw it here in Madiyahu. This is in the chapter 14 verse 26, and it says the following: after they were eating, and Yahushua, I'm going to read the verse 25 as well. It says, "Truly I say to you, I shall certainly no more drink of the fruit of the vine till that day when I drink it anew in the reign of Elohim." And having sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives. So it's basically just to remark that what happened during the night they were eating the Pesach, they also sang a song. So it's amazing. I would like to sing with him as well. And after that, they went to the Mount of Olives. So the Garden of Gethsemane is in the Mount of Olives. For those that had the opportunity to be in Jerusalem, it's quite obvious somehow that the Garden of Gethsemane is in the Mount of Olives. But it's important just to have an idea of the positions and the places, because understanding where everything happened, we can have, a kind of sense of the timing, the necessary timing between one place and the other. Okay, let's continue in Lucas. Luke, this is from chapter 22 to verse 7 to chapter 23 verse 1. I'm not going to read it entirely as well. You can do it by yourself, because the chronology of events on Lucas is exactly the same. Maybe very little difference in some aspect, but the main events that we saw and we have here in the timeline, are exactly the same. But I'm going to highlight one specific thing in the book of Lucas. This is in the chapter 22, verse 8. I'm going to read 7 and 8. It says the following: "And the day of unleavened bread came, when the Pesach had to be slaughtered. And he sent Kepha and Yahohanan, saying, Go and prepare the Pesach for us to eat." So it's basically, we have a confirmation in the book of Lucas that the two Talmidim we see over here that prepared the Pesach were Kepha and Yahohanan. Kepha and Yahohanan were the ones slaughtering the Pesach, preparing everything, preparing the meal for them to eat together with Yahushua during this night. Okay? Let's continue. If we go to Yahohanan, we can read this, and Yahohanan gives more detailed information about what happened during that night. He gives us a lot of information about the dialogue that happened during the night between Yahushua and his disciple. That's why this is starting on the chapter 13, verse 1, and it's going to the chapter 18. So we have almost 6 chapters giving us information about what happened during that night, during the same period of time. So I'm not gonna read it entirely as well, but I'm gonna highlight specific things. So if we go to the chapter 13 in the book of Yahuchanan, this is John, chapter 13, verse 1 to 5. We see an additional event that happened during the Pesach meal, and it says in the 4 that Yahushua rose from the supper and laid aside his garments, and having taken a towel, he girded himself. After that, he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the taught ones and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. So, in addition to all of that, it's happened that we already saw that they were eating the Pesach, that Yahushua announced the betrayer, that he took the bread and the wine, and he explained that this was representing his body and his blood, that they sung a song as well. He also washed the feet of the disciples, of all of them, except for Yehuda, if I'm not mistaken. So this is also happened during that night. Okay, what else happened? If we see that the entire dialogue, if you read the chapter 14, the 15, and the 16, amazing information that Yahushua was sharing with the disciples. But if you go to the chapter 17, this is one of my favorite chapters as well. Actually, we see in the verse 1, it says, Yahushua said these words and lifted up his eye to the Shamayim and said, Father, the hour has come. Esteem your Son, so that your Son also might esteem you, as you have given him authority over all flesh, that he should give everlasting life to all whom you have given him. And this is everlasting life, that they should know you, the only true Elohim, and Yahushua Mashiach, whom you have sent. And we read the entire chapter. Is an amazing prayer from Yahushua. He was praying to Yahuwah the Father, and he was praying for the disciples, and not only for the disciples, the Talmidim at that moment. He was praying in the verse 20. I'm going to read it for you. It says, And I do not pray for this alone, but also for those believing in me through their word, so that they all might be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, so that they too might be one in us, so that the world might believe that you have sent me. You see the profound meaning of those words. Yahushua was praying for you and was praying for me as well in that moment, that we can be one in him. So what else happened during the night? Yahushua prayed for them and prayed for us. Important thing that he was revealing to the disciples about the Ruach HaKodesh, and the important thing that he was praying for us, that Yahuwah can keep us from the wicked one, from the evil. We are not of the world, but we are in the world. So important things that were happening during the period of time. What else happened that we can review on Yahuchanan in the chapter 18, verse 1? It says the following. Having said these words, Yahushua went out with his taught ones beyond the Kidron torrent, where there was a garden into which he and his taught ones entered. So we see that basically the Garden of Gethsemane that is in the Mount of Olives is beyond the Kidron. And in Jerusalem you have it's called the Kidron Valley. There were some water going on over there. So again, additional information about the location, the position where everything happened. And also we see in the chapter 18, verse 12 and 13. 18, verse 12 and 13 of the book of John, Yahuchanan. It says the following. Then the company of soldiers and the commanders and the officers of the Yahudim seized Yahushua and bound him. And they led him away to Hanan first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. So Yehohanan is telling us that before going to Caiaphas, they led Yahushua to Hanan. Hanan was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the Kohen Hagadol. And if we read in the verse 24, it says the following: Then Hanan sent him bound to the high priest Caiaphas. So Hanan was basically accusing Yahushua, asking him many questions, interrogating him, and after that he sent to Caiaphas. So we see we are completing basically the different events that happened during that night. Okay? So those are the main events that happened during that period of time. So we will continue in the next day because we will find additional important information. But before moving there, I want to share with you, and this is important, as I said, we need to understand when, where everything happened. And the picture you can see there in the slide is basically a representation of how was Jerusalem on the period of Yahushua. So if you see here, this is basically the north is going up here, and the south is in this place, the east is to the right, and the west to the left. The Garden of Gethsemane is over here, in this place. And basically here we have a representation of where the temple was. It is exactly the same here. You see, the Mount of Olives is in this place to the east. The Garden of Gethsemane is over here. This is the Kidron Valley. This is a representation of the temple over here. And this was the ancient Jerusalem on the time of the Second Temple period. Okay. So when they took Yahushua, and let's go back to this one. When they took Yahushua, they sent it to the Caiaphas, and there is important evidence that the Caiaphas place or house inside of the Jerusalem was around this place in the upper city. Most probably Hanan's house was close to this one, so they were leading Yahushua from this place on the Mount of Olives to this place over here. Okay, so everything happened during that night, that they were eating the Last Supper over here. They went to Gethsemane over here, and then they arrested Yahushua and they took him back to Jerusalem again, to the house of Caiaphas. Okay, it's important to have basically the locations and the position and the timings, because time to time we assume wrongly that everything was so close that happened almost immediately, because when we read the scriptures it seems that everything happened at the second or the minute later, and it's not like that, because they were moving by walking most of the time on that period. So it's important to have that in mind. Okay, so this was Jerusalem of the time, and we will review this again later, because this is Antonia's fortress. It is believed that and it's over here the same. It is believed that the Pilatus was over here. So everything that happened was over here. Herod's palace was over here. There are some people that are saying it was over here, and also the crucifixion. The official place of the crucifixion. This is a Catholic church of the Holy Sepulchre. They said it's over here, this place, but there is some strong evidence that it's a second place that is existing today in Jerusalem. It's called the Garden of the Tomb. It's over here. There are some people also that believe that Yahushua was crucified over here, that because here is a big cemetery. Cemetery is the biggest Jewish biggest Jewish cemetery that is over here. So, anyways, it's important again to know the place, to understand, have a geographical idea about where it was everything, and just to understand where all the events that we are checking now took place. So let's move on. We will continue with the day 15. We are in 1 hour and 5 minutes from the video, so if I see that it's taking longer, I will cut it and I do a second part, just to make it no more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. So let's do exactly the same exercise, checking the events on the day 15 on Yahuwah's calendar. So again, we know that what is a day is starting on the Boker and finalizing on the evening, and we know we already saw that the day 15 according to Yahuwah's calendar is in the fourth day, because in the day 14 the third day is Pesach. So this is the fourth day of the week according to Yahuwah's calendar, and this is the day 15 on his calendar. And based on all the accounts that we review, the lunar calendar of the Yahudim that year was the day 14. So we know that for the Yahudim was the preparation day of the Yahudim, because the following day is the high Shabbat, is the high day, is the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, so it's a Shabbat. And also is the Pesach of the Yahudim, is when the Yahudim were sacrificing the Pesach and preparing everything to eat the Pesach during the night. But we know that from the calendar of Yahuwah, this was the day 15, it was the first day of Chag HaMatzot, it was the high day of Yahuwah. We review this on the video number 3, just when we saw the two different calendars that were existing on that moment. So we know that this was the day 15 on the calendar of Yahuwah. So just to have an additional idea, and we talk about this, about the 12 hours on a day in a different study. So just to give us an idea about when happened everything, okay? And we will see it when we are reading the account on Matityahu and the rest. So we will do exactly the same exercise, and we will again read the book of Matityahu, starting on the chapter 27, verse 1, until the verse 58. Matthew chapter 27, verse 1 to verse 58. Matityahu 27, 1 to 58. And it says the following. Dice, and morning having come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Yahushua, so as to put him to death. And having bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. This was the last two verses that we read in the previous slide, okay? So basically we know that everything that happened during the previous night, now when the morning came, they took Yahushua and sent him or bring him to Pilate, or Pilatus. So let's continue in the verse 3. Then Yahudah, he who delivered him up, having seen that he had been condemned, repented, returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and to the elders, saying, I have sinned in delivering up innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? You see to it. And throwing down the pieces of silver in the dwelling place, he left, and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, it is not right to put them into the treasury, seeing they are the price of blood. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field, and for the burial of strangers. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood until today. Then was filled what was spoken by the Yirmiyahu the prophet Jeremiah, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him he was pierced, on whom they of the children of Israel set a price, and gave them for the potter's field, and Yahuwah had ordered me. So basically we see what happened with Yahudah at the end, that he hanged himself. I didn't include this part on the timeline because it's an important event, but it's not directly related to what happened to Yahushua. We are trying to understand what happened to Yahushua during the timeline. So important to see what happened, but it's not included in the timeline, just for you to keep it in mind. So let's continue in the verse 11. And Yahushua stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, are you the sovereign of the Yahudim? And Yahushua said to him, you say it. And as he was accused by the chief priests and the elder, he answered not. Then Pilate said to him, Do you not hear how much they witness against you? And he said no, he did not answer him, not one word. So that the governor wondered much. It's amazing, this is part of the one of the proverbs. Shlomo was teaching us in Mishle proverbs that is said that is in several places actually. A wise man is the one that is keeping silence. So it's something that I try to apply in every aspect of my life, and it's something that we need to learn. That not all the time we need to answer, not all the time we need to speak. There are times to be silent. There are times to speak, and and this is also written in Proverbs in Mishle that we need to manage our words. We need to control our words. We need to understand when to speak and when not to speak. And this is, we see amazingly how Yahushua did it in a very complicated time for him. He didn't speak a word because of a reason, and we need to learn from his example. So let's continue in the verse 15. So, and at the festival, the governor used to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wished. So, if we see basically what happened, they bring Yahushua in the morning before the sun was rising up. So, during this moment, in one moment during the morning, we don't know when, a specific time, Yahushua was interrogated by Pilate. So, this is the first event that happened during the morning. Okay, and what happened here is basically is what is written in the 15 and continue. It says that at the festival the governor used to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wished, and they had then a well-known prisoner called Barabbas. So when they were assembled, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you wish I release to you, Barabbas or Yahushua, who is called Mashiach?" For he knew that because of envy they had delivered him up. And as he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, "Have none at all to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much today in a dream because of him." But the chief priest and elder persuaded the crowds that they should ask for Barabbas and to destroy Yahushua. And the governor answering said to them, "Which of the two do you wish I release to you?" They said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "What then shall I do with Yahushua who is called Mashiach?" They all said to him, "Let him be impaled." And the governor said, "Indeed, what evil has he done? And they were crying out all the more, saying, "Let him be impaled." And when Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but rather an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this righteous one. You should see to it." And all the people answering said, "His blood be on us and our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but having Yahushua whipped, he delivered him over to be impaled. So, this is so important event that most of the time we passed over this one. We didn't take this into account. But what happened is basically Pilate has the custom to deliver one prisoner, to set one prisoner free. And he put two men, Barabbas, he was committing murder, Barabbas, and Yahushua, an innocent and a righteous man, the Mashiach. And he is asking them, "Which one you want me to set free?" And all the people was crying out because the chief priest and the elder were pushing the crowds to ask for Barabbas and ask that Yahushua get impaled. So it's very important for you to remember this moment, this event, that they had the opportunity to decide for Yahushua, to save Yahushua, but they choose Barabbas instead of Yahushua. Why so important? Because we will discover in the next video, when we talk about the real reason of Yahushua dying on the day 15, why this event was so important. Because the Yahudim, everybody that was over there, had the opportunity to save Yahushua, and they didn't. So keep that in mind, what happened and how it happened, because it's a really important event. So let's continue in the verse 27. So basically, we see that Yahushua, they choose Barabbas, and Yahushua was delivered to be impaled. They flogged him and they were mocking him. Unbelievable. And we see this in the verse 27. Then the soldier of the governor took Yahushua into the cart and gathered the entire company of soldiers around him. And having stripped him, they put a scarlet robe on him, and planting a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they kneeled down before him and mocked him, saying, Greetings, sovereign of the Yahudim. And spitting on him, they took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they took the robe off him, then put his own garments on him, and led him away to be impaled. And as they were going out, they found a man of Cyrene, Shimon by name. They compelled him to bear his stake. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, place of the skull, they gave him wine mixed with bile to drink. And after tasting, he would not drink it. And having impaled him, they divided his garments, casting lots, that it might be filled what was spoken by the prophet. They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. So we see that after that Yahushua was delivered to be impaled, and they flogged him and mocked him and struck him and all of this, they lead him to a place called Golgotha. And when they came to this place called Golgotha, they impaled Yahushua. Okay? That's the main events. You saw that the many other things happened, but for space limitation, I didn't include it over here. The most important thing is that after that, what happens that Yahushua was going to the Golgotha during this period of time, and when they got there, they impaled Yahushua in this place, the place of the skull. Also, we already read that after that they divide his garments between the soldiers. Okay? And it says, and sitting down they guarded him there, and they put over his head the written charge against him. This is Yahushua, the sovereign of the Yahudim. So we see that also what happened. The written charge was put over his head. This is Yahushua, the sovereign of the Yahudim. In the verse 38 it says, Then two robbers were impaled with him, one on the right and another on the left. And those passing by were blaspheming him, shaking their heads, and saying, You who destroyed the dwelling place and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the son of Elohim, come down from the stake. And likewise the chief priest with the scribes and elders mocking said, He saved others, he is unable to save himself. If he is the sovereign of Israel, let him now come down from the stake, and we shall believe him. He trusted in Elohim, let him rescue him now if he desires him. For he said, I am the son of Elohim. And also the robbers who were impaled with him reviled him, saying the same. So we see it's unbelievable during a period of time, and we will see when this period of time finalized, and we will understand why I put the arrow so long here, that the people were passing through the place of the skull where Yahushua was impaled, and they were mocking him and giving a harsh time, giving all these strong and harsh messages to him, tempting him and trying him. So that happened after all of this previous event happened, when he was already impaled. So let's continue in the verse 45. And from In the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. So what happened from the 6th until the 9th? So for 3 hours there was total darkness on the place. Okay, let's continue on the verse 46. And about the 9th hour Yahushua cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, Mayel, Mayel, why have you forsaken me? Some of those standing there, having heard, said, This one calls Eliyahu. And immediately one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the rest said, Leave it, let us see if Eliyahu comes to save him. So we see that around the 9th hour over here, Yahushua cries out with a loud voice and asking the Yahuwah the Father, why you have forsaken me? And this was in fulfillment of a prophecy in Tehillim. And the soldier, we saw that he was giving him sour wine to drink. And we read in the verse 49, in the verse 50, and Yahushua cried out again with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. So we see that again he cries out again, and during this time he gave up his ruach. So he died during the 9th hour. And this is quite amazing, and I talked to you about this in the previous videos. Yahushua, according to the calendar of Yahuwah, died on the day 15. And we will see in the next videos why this had to happen in this way. But it's quite amazing because during the 9th hour, according to the calendar of the Yahudim, it was when the Yahudim were sacrificing and slaughtering the Pesach lamb, the lamb of Pesach. So Yahushua, as a testimony for them, he also died at the same moment. At the same moment that the Yahudim were slaughtering the Pesach lamb, he also died as a testimony for them. So somehow Yahushua was doing two things in parallel, giving a testimony to the Yahudim when they were killing the Pesach. Is the moment when Yahushua also died. But also he was fulfilling the Devar of Yahuwah by dying on the day 15 during the first day of the Chag HaMatzot, because of a purpose that we will review it in the last part of this study. Okay? So let's continue in the verse 51. And see, the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth was shaken and rocks were split. So basically we see that there was a big earthquake after Yahushua gave his ruach, and even was so big that the veil of the Hechal, the temple, was torn. And it says, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the set apart ones who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the set apart city and appeared to many. And when the captain of those with him who were guarding Yahushua saw the earthquake and all that took place, they feared exceedingly, saying, Truly this was the Son of Elohim. And many women who followed Yahushua from Galilee, attending him, were there, watching from a distance. We know that all the disciples left him, so only the women were in that place, but they were from a distance. And 56 it says, among whom were Miriam from Magdala, and Miriam the mother of Yaakov, and Yehusef, and the mother of Zabdi's son. 57, and this is quite important, and when evening came, there came a rich man from Ramathaim named Yehusef. This is Joseph of Arimathea, who himself had also become a taught one of Yahushua. So Yehusef was also a disciple at Talmidim, like in secret, of Yahushua. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahushua. Then Pilate commanded the body to be given. So this is the 58. So it's quite important. What's happened here? When Yehusef went to Pilate, it says, I'm going to read it again. And when evening came, so When is evening? Evening, we know, is after the sun has already set. It's over here. So when evening came, Yahushua went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahushua. So basically, Yahushua, and we will see in the next account, Yahushua stayed in the cross, stayed in the tree during this period of time, because just was in this moment when evening came, when Yahushua went to Pilate to ask for the body of Yahushua. And keep in mind, how was Jerusalem on that period of time? Where was Pilate? So, and where was Yahushua impaled? To understand the distances and everything that it happened. Okay? So, very important information. We will continue with the Marcos. This is Mark, chapter 15, verse 1. It's basically this one. If you read it by yourself, you will find exactly the same chronology of events. There are not much difference on this account of Marcos. So you can confirm this. You can stop the video if you want. Read it completely. You will see that there are not many difference to the events that we see over here. Actually, there's one important information I think that Marcos is giving us. Just let me take a look with you. Let's go to the chapter 15. Chapter 15, verse 25. Marcos chapter 15, verse 25. And it says the following: and it was the 3rd hour, and they impaled him. So according to Marcos, they impaled Yahushua on the 3rd hour. So it's basically in this moment. Now, this is the only evidence, the only place we have that is saying that Yahushua was impaled in the 3rd hour. And I have been telling you, we need to find 2 or 3 witnesses to declare any truth. So unfortunately, if you read the other accounts, you don't see in any place that this happened on the 3rd hour. If we try to understand the chronology of events, maybe we can see that this happened on the 3rd hour, but we don't have any other witness. So myself, in my opinion, I'm not trusting 100% on this, because I don't have a second or a third witness to confirm this. Okay, but it's important I mentioned, because you can be asking this, but Marcos said at 3rd hour. Why? That's why you put it over here? No, I just put it because I was keeping the sequence of events. And we have this evidence and this witness from Marcos, but unfortunately we don't have a second or third witness just to confirm the truth and establish this matter. This is the main aspect of Marcos, but the rest of the events, you can read it, you continue doing it. It's exactly the same chronology or sequence of events. Okay? Then we go to Lucas. I'm not going to read it completely. Again, you can read it by yourself, but I want to give you a specific highlight and a specific aspect. And this is in the chapter 23, verse 6 to 17. Chapter 23, verse 6 to 17. And it says the following: and when Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean. And when he learned that he was under the authority of Herodes, he sent him to Herodes, who was also in Jerusalem in those days. So we see that when Yahushua was interrogated by Pilatus got the understanding that Yahushua was from Galilee. And when he saw that, he sent Yahushua to Herodes, because Herodes was in Jerusalem because of the feast in that moment. So this is an additional information that Lucas is giving us. So after Yahushua was interrogated by Pilate, he sent Yahushua before Herod. So let's continue with the verse 8 in Lucas 23. And seeing Yahushua, heralds rejoiced greatly. For a long time he had wished to see him, because he had heard much about him and was anticipating to see more miracles done by him, and was questioning him with many words, but he gave him no answer. And the chief priests and the scribes stood accusing him intensely. And Herod with his soldier made light of him and mocked him, dressing him in a splendid robe, and sent him back to Pilate. And if we continue in the verse 12, it says, "And on that day Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for before that day had been an enmity with each other. And Pilate, having called together the chief priests and the rulers of the people, said to them, You brought this man to me as one who turns away the people. And look, I have examined him in your presence and have found no guilt in this man regarding the charges which you make against him. And neither he did Herod's, for I send you back to him, and look, he has done none at all deserving death. Having disciplined him, then I shall release him, for he had to release one to them at the festival." So we see that all of this happened between Pilate sending Yahushua to Herod's, Yahushua coming back to Pilate's. All of this happened before the asking the Yahudim to decide between Barabbas and Yahushua. So that's why you see it over here. In this moment, during this period of time before Barabbas and Yahushua, is when Yahushua went to Herod's and came back to Pilate. Okay? Important to keep that in mind as well, just to understand the different distances and all the time that transcurred during that process. So, if we go to Yehohanan, to John, chapter 18 to 19, and again, I'm not going to read it completely. I want just to highlight few verses in the chapter 19. Yehohanan, John, chapter 19. I'm going to read from 31 to 38. 19:31 to 38. And it says the following. I'm going to read the 30 just to keep this in place. So it says, "So when Yahushua took the sour wine, he said, 'It has been accomplished,' and bowing his head, he gave up his spirit." So if we check, it's basically when it happened, is during this period of time. This is when we are positioned in the timeline, when Yahushua took the sour wine and he gave up his spirit. Everything that we're going to read now, from now on, is happened after this. So it says in the 31, "Therefore, since it was the preparation day that the bodies should not remain on the stake on the Shabbat, for that Shabbat was a high one, the Yahudim asked Pilate to have their legs broken, and that they be taken away. Therefore, the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first, and of the other who was impaled with him. But when they came to Yahushua and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and instantly blood and water came out. And he who has seen was witnessed, and his witness is true, and he knows that he is speaking the truth, in order that you might believe. For this took place in order for the scripture to be filled, not one of his bones shall be broken. And again, another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they pierced." So, and in the 38, and after this, Yehusef or Ramatayim, the Inatot ones of Yahushua, but secretly for fear of the Yahudim, asked Pilate that he may take the body of Yahushua. So everything that we read just now happened, as I said, between Yahushua taking the sour wine and giving up his ruach, and Yehusef or Ramatayim asking the body of Yahushua. Everything happened during this period of time, between the 9 hour and the evening. So what happened is the Yahudim went to Pilate, asking them to break the legs, because we know, and you can read about this and search about this, that the death by crucifixion is a long time, that sometimes they are taking days in order to die. So they were asking, they cannot remain in the stake because Shabbat is coming. So accelerate the process, the dying process. So break their legs in order for them to die soon. So they went to Pilate, and remember the distances. They went to Pilate, asked Pilate to break the legs. Pilate authorized that, and then the soldiers started to break the legs of the people that was crucified. First the robbers, the two ones, and when they went to Yahushua, they didn't broke the legs because they found that Yahushua was already dead. But what they did, a soldier pierced his side with a spear, and blood and water came out. So, important information. Those are the main events that happened during the day 15. And what I want to highlight, this is something that we will review in the next slide, and I'm going to stop the video here and we'll continue in a second video just to not to make it longer. Is what is written in the verse 31 in Yahuhanan. It says that the bodies should not remain on the stake on the Shabbat. Why they were so concerned that the body should stake in the stake during the Shabbat? Why they wanted the bodies to be removed from the stakes, from the cross? It's because of a reason, and we will understand directly from the Torah why they were so concerned about this. And this is written in Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 22 and 23. We need to understand that because this is also a key to understand why Yahushua had to stay on the stake during this period until evening. We will see it directly from the Torah, from the Devar of Yahuwah, to understand why they were so concerned to remove the bodies and why they needed to do it according to Torah. And this is in Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 22 and 23. So, again, we will continue in part B of this, part 5B, just to not to make it longer, so you can read all this information, just to receive all the input and review it again and take notes. So I'm gonna stop it here, and we will continue in the next video. Thank you for watching. So see you in the next one.